Hello, everyone, and welcome to your G.I. Joe read-along book. Every time you hear this chime, it means it's time to turn the page in your storybook. Now, if you are ready, we will start Cobra Strikes. Don't forget to turn the page every time you hear the chime. All right, let's begin. As the sun rose over the Manhattan skyline, another lazy Sunday morning began. Out on the Hudson River, a specially chartered sightseeing ferry boat filled with UN dignitaries was on a breakfast cruise. All seemed peaceful and calm. But this was no ordinary Sunday morning in New York. The evil forces of the worldwide terrorist group Cobra were at work. The door to the ferry's wheelhouse crashed open, and a masked terrorist leveled an automatic weapon at the captain.
Don't move,
he ordered.
Who are you?
Stammered the frightened captain.
I am called Firefly,
answered the terrorist.
Your ship and passengers are in the hands of Cobra. I've rigged explosives in a dozen places. One false move, and I'll send you all to the bottom.
The captain nodded nervously.
Well, I'll do whatever you say. Anchor the boat in the middle of the river,
Firefly ordered. Once the captain had obeyed, the mysterious terrorist took out a radio and spoke into it.
Cobra Commander, the boat is under my control. We have the hostages we need.
Aboard the Cobra hovercraft Water Moccasin, Cobra Commander smiled as he listened to Firefly's report.
Excellent! Excellent!
He hissed. Then turned to Copperhead, the pilot of the hovercraft.
The siege of New York has begun. Hit me to Liberty Island. Using the Statue of Liberty as my headquarters, I'll be able to direct the takeover of the city. Then I'll demand $100 million. The biggest ransom the world has ever paid.
The Water Moccasin sped off, followed by Cobra hydrofoils. Minutes later, the invasion of New York City began, with Cobra Commander ordering,
There is no time to waste. Kill anyone who resists.
Hour after hour, cannon blasts and machine gun fire rocked the island of Manhattan. Everyone was caught off guard. The battle was a brief one, and a short time later, Cobra Commander had established his headquarters in the top of the Statue of Liberty. Cobra Commander immediately issued 2 orders.
Fortify the island. Then contact Major Lord Destro and the Baroness. I want them here at once.
Major Blood was ready when the call came from Cobra Commander, and he told his men,
Get the tanks out of the warehouses and into position. Our job is to block all the tunnels leading into the city. That'll seal up Manhattan Island tighter than a bottle.
At the same time, caravans of trucks came to screeching stops in the middle of the George Washington Bridge, connecting New York with New Jersey. The driver of the lead truck jumped out. It was Destro. He shouted to the Cobra troops who were pouring out of the other trucks.
Block all lanes. Get the men into position. Don't let anyone in or out of New York.
In a television studio in downtown Manhattan, a female guest on a morning talk show made a startling revelation. She pulled off her blonde wig to reveal her true identity to the TV audience. She was the Baroness, Cobra's top-secret agent. As she drew a gun on the startled host of the show, she announced to the cameras,
Cobra has taken over New York. We have UN dignitaries as hostages. Until our ransom demands are met, the city is in our power. Anyone found on the streets will be shot. Resistance is futile.
New York's law enforcement agencies were helpless. The entire city was caught in the coils of Cobra. Only one team could break Cobra's stranglehold. That team was the elite counter-terrorist strike force, codenamed G.I. Joe. At the G.I. Joe underground headquarters, called the Pit, all units were on standby alert, as always. Hawk, the G.I. Joe commander-in-chief, assembled his forces into strike teams, and within hours of Cobra's ransom demand, G.I. Joe was ready to launch a counterattack. Hawk reviewed his last-minute instructions to his men. You all know your assignments. Rescue the UN delegates first. Once they're safe, move lightning fast with our plan. Transports are now waiting to take you to jumping-off points along the coast. Good luck. Aboard the ferry, Firefly was scanning the harbor for approaching ships. It never occurred to him that an attack might come from beneath the waves, where at that very moment, the G.I. Joe underwater specialists, Torpedo and Deep Six, were making their way to the ferry. Undetected, they boarded the boat and removed their diving gear. Armed with automatic machine guns, they headed topside and burst into the wheelhouse.
G.I. Joes!
Screamed the terrorist.
You'll never catch Firefly!
And in a bold move, Firefly crashed through a glass window and rolled out onto the deck. He ran toward the back of the ferry.
Go after Firefly.
Deep Six told Torpedo.
I'll radio Wild Bill and Flint to come in with the helicopters.
Finding Firefly was like looking for a ghost. At last, Torpedo caught sight of him speeding to safety on a jet ski.
So long, G.I. Joe!
Mocked Firefly.
I triggered explosives on the ferry before I abandoned ship. You've got 5 minutes to live.
Less than 2 minutes after Deep Six's call, the Joe Team choppers were hovering near the ferry. It took them another 2 minutes to rescue Deep Six and the UN delegates. The huge helicopters flew off just moments before a massive explosion blew the ferry into splinters. In the chopper, Deep Six winked his thanks to Wild Bill. Then he picked up the radio and announced,
Operation Retriever to all units. All ducks safe. Go get 'em, G.I. Joe.
From various points along the coast, teams of G.I. Joes sprang into action. Well, the G.I. Joe hovercraft headed for Liberty Island, with Cutter at the helm and a team of 5 G.I. Joes aboard. Local forces opened fire from the statue. Shells exploded and bullets whizzed past Cutter as he steered clear of the enemy barrage and moved closer and closer to shore. From a barge below the George Washington Bridge, Duke and his team prepared to launch a surprise attack.
Rock and roll is in position up on the bridge.
Duke told his men.
Get your jetpacks on.
Holding grenades and weapons, the 3 G.I. Joes jetted upward and above the bridge roadway.
Let 'em have it!
Duke yelled as he hurled down a grenade.
Yo, Joe!
The explosion sent a surprised Destro scrambling for cover, snarling.
G.I. Joes!
Then he ordered,
Blast them out of the sky!
The Cobra troops turned their fire on Duke and his team. Suddenly, from one end of the bridge came the roar of a motorcycle. It was rock and roll on his specially built bike. The cycle's machine gun turret spit fiery lead, and the Cobra troops began to fall back. Deep under the city's streets and rivers, teams of G.I. Joes prepared to clear the tunnels of Cobra defenses. One team managed to sneak up on the tank blocking one tunnel. A shot from a G.I. Joe self-propelled gun reduced the Cobra armor to smoking rubble. In the other tunnel, the Joe team in a tank approached a Cobra tank, cautiously. As their tank's turret came out of the shadows into the light, Major Blood spotted them and shouted,
A G.I. Joe tank! Open fire!
The Cobra tank fired quickly and missed. The G.I. Joes returned the fire. There was a blinding flash, followed by an explosion. Major Blood jumped away from his smoking tank and yelled orders to his support infantry.
Hold them off while I make good my escape!
And away he sped in a Cobra stun. Once the tunnels were cleared, G.I. Joe infantry teams blasted their way past Cobra troops into the city. Scarlet and Snake Eyes headed for downtown Manhattan. Their objective was the TV studio the Baroness had taken over. Inside the studio, the terrorists warned the Baroness of the Joe team's approach.
What? G.I. Joe forces inside the city?
She gasped.
Well, you know the escape plan. Head for the roof!
The Baroness and her agents raced into the hall just as the elevator doors opened.
Too late,
Baroness!
yelled Scarlet.
This time we have you!
The Baroness reached for her gun. Scarlet was faster, and she blasted the pistol from the Baroness' hand. The terrorist began backing away. Without a sound, Snake Eyes sprang into action. The martial arts expert quickly KO'd the other agents. When the Baroness had backed to the end of the hallway, it looked as if she was trapped. Suddenly, the sound of a helicopter overhead reached their ears.
That's blood with my aerial taxi!
Laughed the Baroness as she raced to a window and climbed out. Before Scarlet could reach her, the Baroness had grabbed a rope ladder that was lowered from the helicopter, and away she flew in the Cobra chopper. Back at the Statue of Liberty, Cobra Commander received each new report with anger. His forces were on the run.
The reports are bad!
He hissed to his guards.
Firefly, Blood, and the Baroness have been routed! This throw can't hold out much longer! We have to retreat!
Cobra Commander quietly left the Statue of Liberty as the battle raged around him. He made his way to the water moccasin, which Copperhead had ready for him.
We'll pick up Destro on our way out!
Cobra Commander said as the hovercraft sped away. On the bridge, the Cobra forces were now surrounded. Duke and his team had dumped their jetpacks and joined Rock and Roll on one end of the bridge, while another G.I. Joe team joined the battle at the opposite end. The fighting was fierce.
There's only one way out!
Destro grunted as he pulled a hang glider from a Cobra truck. And attaching it to his body, he leaped off the bridge toward the water below. But even before he hit the water, Cobra Commander and Copperhead were already there, waiting to pick him up in the water moccasin. Without their leaders, the remaining Cobra resistance crumbled. U.S. military forces and New York City police took charge. Law and order was restored to the city. Later, after the mop-up operations, all of the G.I. Joes assembled beneath the liberated Statue of Liberty.
Cobra has been defeated again,
announced Deep Six. Duke nodded and pointed at Lady Liberty.
The torch of freedom still burns over New York.
He added proudly.
Yes,
Added Scarlet.
thanks to G.I. Joe.